Now, the second type of insecure attachment is called dismissive avoidant. This results in an infant whose caregiver essentially neglected them. Now, often this is not conscious or intentional. Caregivers who mean well, who had caregivers who were also dismissive avoidant, don't have the neural circuitry to read body language on the same level as people who are secure or anxious. They actually lack the capacity to read people and to read themselves because they didn't have enough exposure to healthy, secure, functioning body language from their caregivers. As a result, they have less awareness. So they might come across behaviorally as competent, as confident, as knowing exactly what they're doing. But there are a couple signs that you might look for. If they're not as attuned to other people's needs, if they often get overwhelmed by other people's needs, that shows the underlying nervous system experience that's going on for them. While they might appear secure, and dismissive avoidant people can often appear secure, but that's just because when that's happening in the nervous system, they are overwhelmed and dissociated on a certain level. So they learn that as their normal. They learn to walk the world without awareness, and they don't know any different because that's how they developed. So as a result, they have a very difficult time understanding certain social experiences, upholding boundaries. They'll often be really weak in recognizing and upholding boundaries, or excessively rigid, one or the other. People with a dismissive avoidant attachment style will typically try to auto-regulate. And that's different from self-regulation, because auto-regulation is the experience of trying to numb out, to keep from experiencing the discomfort in their nervous systems through distraction. And most of the time this is unconscious, so they don't necessarily recognize they're doing it. But there are certain body language cues you can look for. If you have the dismissive avoidant attachment style, you can start to cultivate an awareness of what's going on in your body. And if you're out of touch with it, well, that's the first sign. Oh, okay, well, that makes sense. And if you've taken the quiz and you came up as secure, but you're out of touch with your body, out of touch with your needs, with your emotions and sensations, chances are that was essentially fooling the format of the quiz. So on the surface, those with a dismissive avoidant attachment style appear to need more space from others because they're more easily overwhelmed. So they'll often be the person in the relationship that pushes their partner away, whereas someone who's on the anxious, preoccupied end of the spectrum is reaching and trying to chase their partner, essentially. They're trying to get closer and will often push away an avoidant partner. And the avoidant partner will often push too far away from the anxious person who's trying to reach them. Their superpower is the ability to be self-sufficient, because chances are they've spent their entire lives trying to navigate without awareness of their emotions, of their sensations. The ability to connect with others through empathy, through recognizing what's going on in the other person, to read their body language cues is very difficult for someone who has the dismissive avoidant attachment style. So as a result, they need to look for ways of deepening their awareness, of developing that neural circuitry so that they can become aware of their own feelings and needs. And from that experience, when they see body language in other people, they can actually recognize it from a felt experience, from firsthand understanding, oh, that's what it feels like to be sad. And I maybe look at myself in the mirror if I'm a dismissive avoidant and notice my body language. Oh, that's what it looks like. Having never had that mirrored properly by their caregivers, this is how they develop. Before we get into the disorganized, fearful avoidant attachment style, it's important to look at how the previous three fit on the polyvagal curve. That is the chart that shows the level of stress that each experience and the branch of the autonomic nervous system that they're operating from, mostly, and the symptoms that correspond with that. Once that's clear, it's a little easier to understand the disorganized, fearful avoidant type. So looking at the polyvagal curve graphic, the way that it's pictured here, notice that the types of attachment styles are listed in each of the zones. That is the levels of stress that are in the nervous system that correspond with the autonomic branches of the nervous system that we discussed earlier. So at the very bottom, you see the secure attachment style. They have the lowest level of stress in their nervous systems on that unconscious regulation level. and they're able to experience that phases flow: flexible, adaptive, coherent, energized, and stable. Okay, as we move up the stress load on that scale there, you notice there's the anxious type, the anxious preoccupied type, where they have more mobilized symptoms. Mobilized in the mind, that is, they're hypervigilant, hyperactive in their thoughts and their awareness of their emotions. And also their bodies tend to be more revved up with the sympathetic fight or flight response. Notice the avoidant attachment type is at the top of the chart with the dorsal vagal parasympathetic shutdown response, the immobilization response that happens there that has the avoidant shut down and mentally, emotionally, and physiologically not as connected awareness-wise, and often not as connected to the ability to move and sense well.